So this week I want to talk about what it means to be a sole proprietor. Okay, there are a lot of different ways to set up a business, and if you have a large client base coming right out of school or wherever you are in your career, if you have a large client base, you may want to think about something like a partnership or a corporation or a limited liability company. But for the most part, if you're just a designer or just an artist wanting to do some freelance work and start building your network, then that's all you need is a sole proprietorship. It doesn't come with a lot of legal protections that a corporation has, or even a partnership. It doesn't defer as much of the risk. Risk being if you were to get sued, right? If you were to get sued for not finishing a job as a sole proprietor, your own assets and everything like that are wrapped up in the company. That's not the greatest situation to be in, but it also comes down to the size of the jobs a little bit. I mean, if you're doing smaller stuff, and you're doing a limited amount of it, maybe it's while you're in school you're trying to work towards building a larger company. You can take that on as a sole proprietor with less setup time in the front end. And so the advantage, excuse me, the advantage is that you get to be doing the work more quickly and spending less of your time focusing on the business end of things. And so it's a great way to start out. What I want to point out is that just because you're a sole proprietor doesn't mean that you have to do everything. Okay, so you're a freelance artist and you're drawing a comic book, right? So this is my own example. Drawing a comic book, and you really wanted to get down the storytelling. The storytelling in comics is all about character and line and visual storytelling, right? It's not to say that the other parts of the book aren't important, like inks and colors and lettering. Those are all really important parts of the comic. But the big studios, they have multiple people working on teams that do all that. And so you could do that all yourself. Or if you wanted to produce more quickly, you could choose to hire that out as a sole proprietor. Still, you don't have to form a partnership or a company to do this. You could take and say, I want to have somebody else color my page. And so let's say that let's say you're paid $300 for a page, and you take $50 of that, or whatever the rate is that you choose, and you choose to pay somebody else who's also a sole proprietor. And that's completely legit. You don't have to do any kind of partnership or any kind of additional company building to do that. And it's something that I've done in the past. I've done coloring for people. They've gotten paid to do a job and have needed help, either with flats, which are setting up the files to color, or to do the entire page themselves. And so that's been my my experience with it. It's really kind of it's really low commitment on the setting up of the business end. So a lot of times designers don't want to spend a ton of time building their business, and that'll come later. They feel like they need to build up a body of work first, and this is a great way to do that. It's relatively simple to file in taxes. You can talk to a tax consultant. I'm not going to give any advice on that because I refer to my wife a lot for that, or defer to my wife for that, because she's a lot more. It's more her area. She's a lot smarter when it comes to that. I, on the other hand, I do the work. I build relationships with clients. That's what I'm good at. And so all of that work of doing the actual design work and then building your network can be done as a sole proprietor. You don't have to be thinking. You need to understand what the advantages of maybe a partnership at some point, or when would you need a partnership? Think about if you wind up doing a lot of comic work, right? And you find somebody else that you really like their coloring and their lettering, and they just take care of you really well. They do a great job, and they got reasonable rates. You may think about at a later time forming a partnership and saying, I'm going to do the writing and the storytelling, and I just need somebody to do the coloring for me. And as long as there's a market for what you're doing, and as long as you're bringing in consistent income with it, there's no reason not to have a partnership if you like working with this person. But it's something to be mindful of for maybe future. You know, the other thing of forming a corporation, I think that would probably be, you'd have to have a pretty solid client base, and you'd have to be building, you know, maybe building a lot of websites, or something where there's a large market for it. I'm changing from comics to websites because I think that there's probably a bigger market for doing websites than there is for comics at this point. A lot of comics are independent creators, um, and that's where the industry kind of bubbles and churns. Um, but you know, building websites, there's a huge market for that. Or maybe it's you do videography. Maybe you've got somebody who shoots, you know, great photos and video, and you're a great editor, and so hey, you're going to put together a you know, partnership and work that way. So um, knowing what kind of different business structures there are can kind of give you a clear direction of what kind of environment you might want to work in as you're thinking about forming a business, or going out on your own. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, if you have questions, throw them in the comments. I see every comment that comes across, and I try to respond to them. And if you have any questions for me, it's just drewblom@gmail.com, or you can reach me on Twitter. It's just @drewblom, or you can message me through Facebook as well. So, yeah, until next time, we'll talk to you later.